I would like to comment with our viewers about the importance of the study of sociopathology. Psychopathology is without a shadow of a doubt an issue that nobody likes to deal with very much, and it needs to be addressed urgently, as well as sociopathology. Even better, psychosociopathology would be a state of interaction of the human being's social and individual pathologies, so that they can then, through the perception of this conscientization, accomplish a great psychosocial therapy. In fact, in our courses, we even have a technical course that is recognized by the Secretary of Education, which trains psychosocial therapists, which would be the conscientization of this science that is aiding the human being in terms of his conflicts. As we verified, and Dr. Kepi saw the following through his studies, that society in the past, how did education interfere in the human being's life and in his social life? In that Victorian area, in the days of our grandparents, of our relatives in the past, the way they educated their children by repressing, reprimanding heavily, and sometimes even being beaten at school. So there was a pre-Freudian society of censorship regarding consciousness of one's problems. Every time a problem arose, when it arose in teenagers, in children, or when individuals in society manifested a pathology, society acted in a repressive way, but more in the sense of hiding consciousness of the problem. So what dominated was hypocrisy, imposed moralist values, which did not solve problems, and on the contrary, problems got more and more out of control, which ended up leading to a type of revolution, a liberation of the entire youth in society, and this mainly happened after a Freudian era. When Freud began to make a comparison between censorship of religion, of the education teachers and parents were providing, together with the neurosis of the human being, then a person would think, if I follow all these social rules, I'm going to become more neurotic, so I'm going to opt for being free, mainly in the sexual sense, due to Freud's sexual theories, and we swung to the extreme opposite, a pole of total freedom and wantonness, where people used their freedom to do whatever they wanted, to take drugs, to not work, to do evil unto his fellow men, and this led to a pole of total decay. So this would be a post-Freudian society mainly of total freedom of conduct, but also in this phase of total lacking all consciousness. So a society that is more balanced would be a society that gives freedom to consciousness and then controls or even represses certain conduct. That is, it is important for us to see that we conscientize a problem, not only our own problems, but also those of our fellow men, of humanity, and of society, and that we address this without censoring this consciousness, so that we can repress this conduct better and have a more healthy lifestyle. And this is our proposal with Analytical Trilogy, conscientization, so that we can have the correct conduct.
Let's see now a sentence that I've put here for you.
A society that does not accept being good, beautiful, and truthful is in decay.
And what do I mean by this? That the basis of society is good. It has to be good. The essence of society is good. Society's essence has to be true. It has to be in agreement with Roman law. And this essence of society has also to be aesthetic. It has to be beautiful. If it isn't like this, then what we have is a false society. Take a look at this chart that I've put up here for you.
The fictitious society is crumbling, and it is not the authentic economy that is crumbling.
It isn't the authentic economy that is falling. What is falling is money speculation. Because the authentic economy is related to agriculture, related to industry, and even to normal commerce. Now, take a look in second place at what I have written. Let's see.
The fictitious, so-called pseudo-economy is ending, what we know as the market economy.
Do you know, Claudia, that in the March 16th edition of the newspaper, this piece of news came out? The fall in commerce will be terrible. Take a look here. That is, the individual who is saying this is linked to the World Organization of Commerce. Just look down here. Here, the bald guy. He's even scratching his head because what he thinks is different from the way it really is. That is, commerce comes from the people. Commerce belongs to the people who do commerce. So, if this is crumbling, it's not the people who are crumbling. In fact, what he is saying here is even a joke. Now, there needs to be a change in the economy as well. We are always warning people about certain facts. Like, since 1978, we've been showing how medications cause problems for those who take them, and that illnesses arise from the human being's internal psychological life, from his bad thoughts, his bad feelings, and also from his lack of ethics. So we reveal this mistaken idea about medicine. And then later, we show that this mistaken idea also exists in relation to psychology. That is, when a person has some type of perturbing alteration, whatever it may be, it's not that this illness is a part of his essence. It isn't. It's an artificial thing. If an individual is neurotic or psychotic or whatever it may be, this is something artificial. It's not something authentic in himself. So the issue of society and of economy is the same. Take a look in third place at what I wrote.
This is the reason why Brazil is not suffering, other than the speculators. The delirious individuals are suffering because their fictitious wealth is ending.
Let's see now a chart that I made about what would be the solution for working companies and agriculture, industry, and even commerce.
Let's build our own banks.
When I say banks here, I use the word banks in quotation marks, because it would not be a bank to serve the general population. It's kind of a little bank within each company to work with their own money. In first place,
if each company were to make their own so-called bank, the company would get rich very quickly.
Notice that just with the money that is paid in interest rates to the banks would enable you to have your own bank and have money to use toward the next plantation or the next manufacturing cycle for new steelworks production, etc. So just observe that it's not necessary to spend so much money in giving it away to others. Each one can work with what you have. And in second place now, let's see.
This so-called bank would not be able to charge interest rates to the company.
Of course. Otherwise, what's the use? In fact, employees could borrow money from the company or safeguard money there without paying any interest of any kind. In third place,
this bank would be formed as if it were a capital. The great problem is the interest rates that are charged, and not the banks, per se. In fact, Dr. Kepi, there are some city halls around the world who did this and weren't affected at all by the crisis.
So then, it's so easy to do that why not do this then? We have been airing these programs for years now, so come on, people, let's wake up. I have a new chart for you here.
the reason or the function of the stock exchange. The stock exchange is responsible for the death of the development of the nations.
So just look at this. An individual plants coffee there in Minas Gerais, deep in the countryside of Brazil, or in Sao Paulo, or wherever. So this coffee has to go through the Chicago Stock Exchange, and they are the ones who determine the price. Now, they not only determine the price of the coffee, for example, but they are the ones who sell it also. So the profit doesn't go to Minas Gerais or Sao Paulo. It doesn't go to Brazil. It seems that the world is some kind of a big joke in terms of the way society is set up. Let's see now, secondly.
The fall in a stock exchange is responsible for the despair of delirious individuals.
It's good that the stock market falls. It has to fall. Why? Because the stock market isn't an authentic economy. Those who live off of money speculation are way out there. They're not in the real world. They become more and more ill, seriously mentally sick, on medications,
this is why he
with all
needs
kinds of
billions
psychic
every
disturbances
hour in the
involved.
bank, billions from taxes taken from the people.
Yes, instead of giving these millions to the people, because then it would revert in benefit of the nation.
That's right.
Why don't they do this?
What happens with the people, with humanity?
Could it be that humanity has become sort of mentally retarded?
It's as if they were hypnotized.
It must be. Well, let's take a look in third place.
The stock exchange is not the country that drowns. What drowns are the mafiosos in it. Observation. The fall of the stock exchange represents a gift for the decent nations.
Notice that the world is not suffering with this fall in the stock market. It is not suffering like it did in 1929 and to some degree in 1982. And why not? Because this is something lucky for humanity, as we will now be able to work with what we produce. I'm going to put up now a new sentence. Take a look.
The value of a person is weighed based on what he or she does.
So, if he does what is good, what is truthful and aesthetic, then he is a good person. If he does, for example, money speculation, or if he does anything that is illicit, if his head is filled with a million evil ideas, or bad-willed, then he is an evil person. So, it is very important for each one of us to consider to what point we are useful or useless to social life.
We'll be right back.
Even if we don't have a lot of consciousness, we can perceive that life is divine. We live in transcendence, whether we accept it or not. We still live in an earthly paradise, except we don't accept it. In fact, we attack what is most beautiful, good, and real. Consciousness of our envy and inversion will make it possible for us to return to this paradise we've abandoned. We don't need to build it. We just need to accept it. The Stop the Destruction of the World Association was created to bring about exactly this consciousness. We are working to return the world to goodness. Join us.
We can have an idea of the level of equilibrium that a person has by observing how this person relates himself to society. If the person conducts himself by not adapting to inverted values, to wearing a social mask, or adapting to this pseudo-real structure, which would be a structure of consumption, of masks, of megalomania, of narcissism. It's not these people who adapted to this, to these values, who would be more balanced. What do individuals who are more balanced have? They show what? They demonstrate a level of social responsibility. The person who sees society, sees his problems and helps society to correct itself, and works towards the general well-being of all involved, these individuals are the more healthy ones, and the more balanced ones have more value. Those who are sick only want to exploit and attack society. He normally has a very isolated life. So you will notice that these families of people who are very rich, these families that are very rich, they are normally socially isolated. They live like a clan among those little groups of millionaires and of powerful people, or sometimes completely isolating themselves without worrying about the well-being of their fellow men, and sucking, destroying, exploiting, attacking, generating wars, and normally having jobs that are very dangerous for humanity. On many occasions, even dealing in weapons, drugs, and speculating in the stock exchange. So these are the sickest individuals, the social demons.
What we're looking at here is something that I'm going to show you now. Let's see.
Do you want to know a society? Take a look at how their laws work.
So nowadays, what used to be called Roman law does not exist any longer. Where, for example, here we have a lawsuit complaint. So then one goes to the book of law to see exactly what to do. He would consult the code of law.
In the code of the laws.
But in present-day law, which is called Anglo-Saxon law, each judge decides things according to his own interpretation, decides out of his own head. So, if an individual wakes up on the wrong side of the bed one day, and then falls and breaks his leg, then fights with his wife about it, he can just twist things in such a way that the judge ends up destroying the life of a good individual.
Precisely. And through one's own inversion of values, due to unconscious envy, etc., he is already going to have a tendency to attack those who are more value.
I've been reading this new Brazilian constitution that Ulysses Guimarães and these others wrote, just how they gave all possible favor to those people who are rather simple and who work, and took away any possible reason for a company to fire an employee, or any situation at all that might favor the company. And so what happens then? The complainant goes to court, and the judge, on many occasions, gives all favor to him because the law instructs to do so.
That's right. And there we have an exaggeration on the other side. Am I not right, Dr. Kepi? We see companies wanting to exploit their workers, and on the other side, labor lawyers using these employees to destroy companies.
So Ivair, our cameraman, was just commenting that if the judge rules wrongly, then jurisprudence is created about that ruling, so that everyone afterwards ends up following that error. It's a catastrophe. I'm saying this because there has to be a conscientization of these facts in society. Things can't continue like this. Society is in a state of decadence due to this. So take a look at this sentence.
Society dies when there exists opposition to social well-being.
Can you grasp that? So the judicial issue has to favor what is good, the truth, and what is beautiful for society, what is right, what is just. So what we are witnessing is a jurisprudence that is totally unusual and even erroneous. And so, who would it be who must deal with this? It's you lawyers, law schools, forums, all those who deal with this issue. We can't. We are scientists working in the field of psychopathology.
You know, Dr. Kepi, I would like you here to add something. For when you talk about companies, about work, and all this, I really know that you have another spirit. So you want the companies to be strong, for example. A strong society that protects those who work in companies and the citizens of that society. Normally, those who want a strong society want a strong company to be able to generate profit for speculators and their capitalists, and not for those who work. So this competition exists, this shock, this war within the economy itself, which ends up leading to...
But this is something that we've always said, isn't it, Claudia? That the human being has to earn the rightful amount of money that he works for. And not this process of using money speculators to create companies and then put people to work in them, enslaving the workers, making slaves of the people in order to furnish the speculators with all kinds of money.
This happens later in those communist revolutions, when the old employees took over the industries they worked in and destroyed them and ended up eliminating their own source of income.
Sure, but in capitalism, Claudia, the structure is the same thing. Because in any structure, the human being is inverted. Take a look at this chart here.
See how happy they are. First, an excessive interest in food.
Notice that the individual who eats too much, or those who eat hardly anything, they may even force themselves to actually go hungry due to something of a body look or aesthetics. They are people who ruin their own lives and that of society in which they live. Let's see in second place.
An excessive interest in money.
If the individual has a good amount of money to live on, why does he need millions or even billions? It's because he's twisted, he's crazy. Look, when a magazine just sings the praises of this or that millionaire or billionaire, what it should really be saying is, look at this guy, he's completely crazy, schizophrenic, mentally ill. So this must be said, that when they publish something about so-and-so, the billionaire, they must say, he's the guy with all his screws loose, deranged.
If you want to know the scientific facts about this, read the book, The Freedom of the People, The Pathology of Power, because it is the first study into pathology of individuals who are in power.
Those who read this book will never be the same again. It will totally change their way of looking at things.
Because the human being has the tendency to admire those who have a lot of power.
Read this book and change your view of the world beyond return. Take a look in second place at what I've written.
An excessive interest in sex. This is also something that impedes the human being's happiness.
Nowadays, there are too many people in the world. But magazines, the radio, television, they just incentivate sex, incentivating the sexual lives of 14, 15, 16-year-olds. So what do they want with this? They are incentivating overpopulation.
The three elements that society most incentivates are the most noxious.
Notice that instead of society incentivating virtue, incentivating work, honesty, common sense, they incentivate this. What do you want? So this is the horrible society that we have here. So then let's take a look at the issue of wealth. What's happening?
What is happening is the universalization of wealth, the human being at the service of the world. So here in the middle, we have all the wealth.
To serve the people. Serve science, serve the schools.
The church, research, the nations, industry and agriculture.
What is wealth used for nowadays? For those who speculate, those who are conniving, who are dishonest, who don't want to work. This is the situation. Take a look at this other saying that I have written.
There was no fall in the stock exchange other than the consciousness that this money did not exist.
Look, an author, a writer, said that if you were to count $1 billion, you're going to spend your entire life counting, and even then you won't have enough time to count it all. Because it's not funny, actually. They say that a person has 1 billion, has 2 billion, has 70 billion. This is a joke, people. How does it work? The stock market has numbers, showing that an individual can have this amount because he speculated and then this amount turned up. But what the speculative market says doesn't exist. So nothing is falling, people. What is happening in the world is simply the consciousness that those who thought they had 70 billion or 30 or 10 just didn't really have that amount of money at all. The existence of all this money is a huge lie, coming from the owner of this world, whose name is Lucifer, who is deceiving everyone. Take a look at one of those who is responsible for this.
John Maynard Keynes.
He thought that money should be saved, built up, hoarded basically, increasing the fortunes of bankers, the fortunes held up in safes or maintained within these safety deposit boxes, etc. He followed the mentality of some money mongers, those who only think of money, instead of following this individual. Look.
Thomas Aquinas.
What did Thomas of Aquinas have to say? Take a look.
What is happiness made of? Can it be riches? No. Honors? Also no. Can it be of power? Also no. No, because it is temporary. Of the senses? No, because that is too rudimentary. Can happiness arise from the spirit? Yes, because it comes from the spiritual, or better, from the divine being. To reach happiness and goodness, the human being has to do good.
Now take a look at this photo of Montesquieu. What did Montesquieu write?
That the powerful live a lie and trick their subjects with false dreams of wealth.
Well, let's skip to the fourth one.
The separation of the three powers of the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Trilogy is that the three powers be independent, but interdependent of each other.
Notice that each of these powers would have the same degree of power, the executive with the same amount of power as the legislative, and the legislative with the same power as the judicial, and not a power to do whatever one wants to do, to think whatever one wants to think, but within laws that are just, beautiful, and true.
So, see you next time.